Good evening. How are we getting on? I'm McGuinty, and welcome to my fireplace. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story. The Aran Islands are some of the most famous in Ireland, unique in the modern day for preserving the island way of life, which is rapidly going extinct. But how did these islands come to be? Well, that's what I'll tell you today. Our story begins with a giant. He was a gargantuan creature, even by giant standards, well over 20 feet tall and with shoulders broader still. This giant had occasionally been seen among the mountains of Galway by local farmers. Nobody knew his real name, but they called him simply An Fear Mór. While giants are generally solitary creatures, preferring to roam their territories alone, there comes a time in every giant's life when they desire companionship. An Fear Mór was lonely and let out a very deep shout. This shout was too deep for any humans to hear, although they did feel the earth tremor. The call was primarily meant for other giants, and in this case it caught the attention of one many miles away. This giant was not from Galway, but from Clare, and had occasionally been sighted in the Burren. Upon hearing the call, she made haste for West Galway, crossing the mighty Galway Bay in a single bound. This was An Fear Mór, a creature in a lot of ways very similar to An Fear Mór. While side by side they could be told apart, they could easily be mistaken for each other at a glance. Upon meeting each other, a mutual attraction began to blossom, and the pair began the elaborate mating ritual of the giants. This process has never been seen by a human, but it has been heard. Often in the summer months, the crunching and grinding of rocks can be heard throughout mountain ranges on the west coast. Hikers have also been known to find very fine mounds of powder along the trails. And if you ever hear such activity, you do well enough to leave well enough alone. After all, the giants deserve their privacy. After the ritual was completed, the two giants decided that they should partake in a contest of strength. After all, why not determine who was the more powerful in the relationship? Traditional giant tests of strength are quite varied, but it was decided that in this case they would throw a boulder as far as they could. So the pair found stones many times larger than themselves and dragged them to the edge of Galway Bay. And on the count of 3, the impossible rocks flew through the air at speeds that defied logic. The air groaned in protest, and the sky turned red with fire. Seagulls ducked and weaved to avoid molten rock falling from these massive projectiles. The rocks soared right across the bay, climbing higher and higher until they were both out of sight. The giants were initially upset at this, as it seemed their test would be a draw, until the pair saw 2 streaks of red coming from behind them. They had thrown their boulders so hard that they went all the way around the world. There is an old saying, however, when giants play, we all pay the price. The boulders hurtled towards the bay at preposterous speeds and hit the water with an almighty impact. Boiling waves hurtled towards nearby towns, wiping all the people out in an instant. The giants were made of tougher stuff. The immense heat didn't faze them in the least, and they were most concerned with the outcome of their test. Throughout this global journey, the pair had lost track of whose boulder was whose. More heated than the water was the argument that ensued between the two giants. Every curse under the sun was uttered, until An Fear Mór decided she was done with this farce. Rage bundled up on An Fear Mór until he couldn't take it anymore. As she was turned around, preparing to take the leap back home, a third massive boulder, slightly smaller than the others, thundered towards her head. She tried her best to dodge, but the projectile clipped her on the side of the face, launching her into the bay. Still, the rock sailed into the water with a third thunderous impact. Realizing what he had done, An Fear Mór let out a gut-wrenching scream that was heard as far away as Waterford. His guilt carried across the wind for miles. The landscape of the area was changed forever. Entire townlands were destroyed, their names lost to time, and hundreds perished. But there was also 3 new features just outside the bay. 3 islands, to be precise. 2 of these, Inishman and Inishmore, were the product of the test of strength between our giants, and the third, Inisheer, was the product of their dramatic falling out. So what happened to our giants? Well, neither was seen again. 'Tis unlikely that An Banmore was put down by the attack. Giants, after all, are tough creatures, and while we don't know for certain, most people believe she made it back to her hiding place in the burn, and is back to her solitary ways. It's unlikely she will ever answer the call from a giant again. And far more is said to be roaming the hills of Galway to this day, with a great shame hanging over him. Despite his immense loneliness, he will never make a call again. So, that's the story of how the Aran Islands came to be. Thanks for listening, and Ní Hamach.